it's my pleasure. Sorry it took me a while. I was on another call and it ended up running a little bit long, but I'm really glad to be on with everybody. How's it going?
It's going good.
Everybody, my name is Akeem Brutus. I am the Chief of Staff to Commissioner Oliver Gilbert. Commissioner Gilbert is one of the 13 county commissioners who represent Miami-Dade County on behalf of everyone. And I'm really glad to be here to talk to you about marine issues and anything else you're interested in.
And my name is Sophia Munoz, and this is our 8th grade law class. And we're here to talk about the problem of marine pollution, and we wanted your help to gather research. Pretty much we're focusing on the Key Biscayne Islands, the trash and the pollution, and we wanted to focus and help gather research so we can help tackle that problem.
Okay, awesome.
Well, so far we know that in the Key Biscayne Islands, they've been picking up trash 2 times a week, and we wanted to see if we can help change that and create a policy.
Twice a week?
Yeah, twice a week. And we wanted to see if we can change that, create a policy that we can help them pick it up more than just 2 times a week to get.
Project Citizen is a class that students take where they get to learn how to create a policy in their community.
Oh, wow, that's really cool. That's really cool. That's what I do, on a day-to-day basis. One of the things that we do is that we set policies for the county, and we make sure that those policies are enacted in a way that works well and efficiently. So that's really exciting to hear that you guys are learning about that at a young age. It's something that's very important for the functioning of our government.
Yeah.
It'll help if I talk a little bit about the policy making process from the county's perspective.
Yeah.
So like I mentioned, I'm the Chief of Staff for Commissioner Oliver Gilbert. He's one of the 13 county commissioners. The county is broken up into 13 single-member districts, which means that we carve up the map into 13 equally into 13 districts with roughly equal populations. And our process is basically we have our commission meetings. We meet twice a month as a full board and once a month as committees or as smaller subcommittees. Generally speaking, if there's a policy initiative, it either comes before us as a resolution or as an ordinance. A resolution ordinance is a little bit stronger, and it requires a first reading, which means it has to go before the full commission to be heard initially. Then it requires generally a public hearing. The public hearing is typically at committee, but sometimes it can be at the commission. And so at committee with the public hearing, that's when the people or the public has a chance to come out and voice their opinion on the item. That's when the board members, or actually the committee members, have a chance to look at the item in more detail, maybe recommend changes, and then that policy, if it meets muster and gets the approval of the committee, then the committee sends it over to the full commission, and at that point, the entire board gets a chance to look at it, ask questions. Generally, at that point, we don't take public comment, but anyone who's interested can still attend because it is a public meeting, and sometimes it's a good idea in case there's questions. And then if it passes the board, then it becomes a full-blown policy. So if you guys are interested in crafting some type of legislation that you could present to our office and then that our office could look at to sponsor, that's definitely something that we can work on together. To get on the agenda, you need a sponsor of some kind. Either a department or one of the county commissioners are generally needed to get on the agenda. So that's a quick overview of our process. So if you guys have a policy initiative that you're interested in, I would say, maybe put together a summary of that initiative and you can send it to our office and we can review it and we can start working together, going through that process of reviewing and approving and taking all the necessary steps to actually craft legislation.
So we're working on updating marine garbage disposal, specifically in Key Biscayne, because a lot of that garbage disposal ends up going into the ocean because it ends up overflowing since we don't pick up the trash enough times a week.
And that's one of the policies. We have 2 other options. Another option could be increase the border police or remove border license/community service.
Okay. Those are all interesting ideas, and basically the idea is to find ways to reduce the amount of trash that gets dropped in there. The initial one being that if the trash is picked up more often, there's less chance for it to, blow out or overflow and get into the marine life or into the ocean.
Is this like something that you can get on board with?
I mean, we can certainly look at it, but just to be, frank, with any policy initiative, one of the things that we look at is the fiscal impact. And so we have to look at, what that means, but we can definitely go through the process of the policy crafting, process. So, this is one way that we get potential ideas for policies. But generally speaking, ideas for policies can come from anywhere. It can be a news article that we're watching, or listening to, and it gives us an idea. I've gotten a lot of policy ideas just from emails, people saying, hey, this is a problem and we think this is a solution. And I think it's great to have students doing something similar, basically identifying a problem and coming up with different solutions. Like I said, when we get a request in our office to address a policy initiative, we have an internal process where we take that request, we present it to the commissioner, we vet it with the commissioner to see, if the commissioner is interested in doing in sponsoring the policy. If so, what kind of language the commissioner would be looking to see. So that's why I'm saying the first step would be to submit a policy idea with a brief summary of it, and then I'll share it with my legislative team, and then they can share it with the commissioner, and it's a back and forth process. So I think ideally you guys would identify maybe a main point of contact, and that way once my legislative team, whoever is assigned on my legislative team to work on it, can communicate if there's any questions once we receive the policy recommendation.
Okay, that's perfect. And when can we attend to make these changes?
So the next Board of County Commissioners meeting, the next full board meeting is going to be on the 18th, but there are internal deadlines in order to get the item, written up, drafted. It has to go to the attorneys. They have to put it into the right format. Then it has to be submitted to the chairman's office. And so I have to check on what the next deadline is. It's not necessarily the next meeting. Before the items get onto a meeting, there's a submission deadline. So if you wanted an item to be heard on the February 18th agenda, I have a calendar that says for the February 18th agenda, your items have to be submitted by X date. So I don't have that in front of me, unfortunately. I apologize. But just for your awareness, that's part of the process. So I'd have to look at, once we have it crafted, the date of completion would be based on that submission deadline. It's usually, I would say, from beginning to end, roughly 3-month process, depending on, how quickly or slowly things take. But all in all, in drafting it, getting the idea, formulating it into the right, format, and presenting, submitting it for a placement onto an agenda, and for it to finally get on the agenda, is probably, I would say between 6 and 12 weeks, so like a month and a half to 3 months.
Oh, we also saw a video on social media of people dumping trash off boats. So that's another reason why we think we really need this policy, because if we had more trash cans and more clean and open trash cans, people wouldn't dump as much trash in the ocean and harm our environment. Yeah,
I've seen those videos too. They're very disturbing, and definitely want to do what we can to address that. That is one of those areas where we want to make it easy for folks to be able to get rid of their trash, not feel like they need to dump it. And also, that is probably a place where we would work with marine police patrols to try to address that, because that is a crime, frankly. And even if you don't have trash cans, that's not excusable.
This is awesome. Okay, so we can look up online the next couple meetings. I guess obviously it's too late for the 18th.
Probably, yes. To get an item drafted and approved and in front of the chairman's office and placed onto an agenda, it does take some time. And at this point, we don't even have an actual draft resolution. So, yeah, it'd probably be a couple of meetings before we're ready to get onto an agenda.
Right, and then so once we do all the drafting, then the sponsor can then introduce it, right? That's the next step? So the
Yeah, I
first
would
step
say-
would be having,
Yes,
so the first step would be having the kids come up with a summary of
Mhm.
the policy to send to you or to send to our district commissioner or any commissioner. How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yes, you can send it to any commissioner. I mean, this is a countywide issue. This is an issue that obviously impacts a lot of different folks. But I would imagine, for example, the Bay isn't in my district, but obviously I understand it's an important asset. But yeah, no, I know the commissioners that have the Bay in the district work on a lot of these types of initiatives,
Right.
and they may be working on other things that might tie into it. So yeah, it could be a good idea
Okay.
to take the information that you got from me in terms of how to approach the county and to present a policy initiative and identify which commissioner you think would be the best person to do it. I imagine you would see, there's commissioners that have a great interest in the Bay. I know Commissioner Cohen-Higgins was the chairperson for the committee that had jurisdiction over the Bay the past 2 years, and only just recently that changed. But she has the Bay in her district and has always shown great interest. Commissioner Steinberg also has the Bay in her district. I know she does a lot around Bay Nanza, if I'm not mistaken. Commissioner Regalado as well. They all have the Bay in their district and they're big supporters of the Bay. But whichever office you work with, I've even seen where people send their policy initiatives to multiple offices, and whichever office takes it up and runs with it ends up sponsoring it. But generally speaking, you're able to I would say cast a wide net when you're trying to make policy initiatives. And that works not just on our level, but every level of government. So if you're trying to work with the city and you don't necessarily have a specific commissioner or office that you're working with, you can always put together a letter and send it to all of them and say, hey, this is a policy initiative we hope someone can take up. We actually did something similar with the school board, and we're working on a recycling program. And it really came from the commissioner saying, hey, school board members, I'm working on this initiative. I'd love to partner with somebody. And one of the offices ended up reaching out to us, and now we're working on that initiative. So yeah, it never hurts to cast a broad net. Ultimately, with government, especially with our democracy, a big part of it is building consensus. And the more people that feel like they have a part in creating the policy, the greater of a consensus you generally create.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
This is very informative, definitely informative for us. Now we know what to do for our next steps.
Yes, super.
And look out for that email. We're definitely gonna try and open that net wide and send it to all 13 of you guys.
But I encourage you to continue to engage your government. We can't do this, by ourselves. I want you guys to know, a lot of the great ideas, the great things that we do comes from the public. So please feel encouraged to always share those ideas and let us know what we can do to serve you better.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yay.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye.